Welcome to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Every Wednesday, Mark and Kim, along with their special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Mark and Kim will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience, and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Mark and Kim are tested, certified, and professional spiritual mediums, metaphysical teachers, healers, and spiritual advisors with their own individual spiritual practices in Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles, California. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
The problems in our world cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created them. Beautiful quote from Albert Einstein. And today we are going to be elevating our own level of thinking through the guidance of Erik Medhus, a special soul that's crossed over and who's going to be sharing his time and wisdom with us today live on Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. I'm Kim Falcon, founder of Love First, where life transformations happen in Encino, California. And you can find me at lovefirst.info. The work that I do is all about raising consciousness, bringing in well-being and joy. And if there's anything I can do to support you, it would be my honor. I do have a couple of upcoming events and workshops I'd like to share with you. First, on Saturday the 19th, I'll be doing readings at the Center for Spiritual Living in Camarillo, California. And I'd love to read for you, or you can just stop by and say hi. I'll also be hosting a 2-day workshop on May 14th and 15th titled Angelic Guidance, how to communicate with your guardian angels and spiritual guides, and understanding yourself through angelic eyes. This is going to be a beautiful weekend with the angels. If you're interested in working with the angelic realm, you will love this class. And you can reserve your seat now on lovefirst.info. Mark and I are also going to be teaching the weekend of July 16 together for a workshop here in Encino, California. I am so excited. Details soon to follow, so make sure that you check either one of our websites for the information. I do want to give a huge shout out to my co-host, Mark Lanehart, who is having a blast in Las Vegas. Mark, I just want to know if you're still doing your meditations and Qigong in the middle of March Madness. I don't know. Or have you switched out the meditations for cocktails? I think we will find out next week. But you are missed, Mark. We are going to miss you today. So if there's anything Mark can do to support you with his spiritual practice, or you'd like to get out and do some great hiking, you can find Mark at marklanehart.com, or you can look up The Intuitive Prospector. If you'd like to interact with us on social media, you can find us on Facebook under Inspired Living Radio, Twitter and Instagram under Inspired for Us, Google Plus under Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. And this is where you can interact with us and find out about upcoming shows and also send through your questions. In fact, we've received an influx of questions for Erik today, so we're so excited to get through those. You can also listen to all of our archives on OMTimes Radio, Podbean, SoundCloud, marklanehart.com, Vimeo, YouTubes, and iTunes. Very exciting. We just got on iTunes, so that's a great thing for us. Want to remind everybody about our inspired affirmation for the month. A positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. All right, for our show today, the topic that we've all been waiting for, we are going to be talking about the book, My Life After Death. And we're going to be talking about how a mother healed from her son, Erik's suicide, and how she works with her son through Channel Kim Babcock to bring forth his inspirational messages and information of life after death to the world today, and all the beautiful work they are all doing today to help us better understand the issue of suicide and life after death, and just spirituality in general. So our special guest today, Dr. Elisa Medhus, and channel for Erik, Kim Babcock. In fact, Kim will be channeling Erik live. So any questions that you have about life after death, or you simply need guidance in your own life, you don't want to miss this. We're still accepting questions. We've got a whole ton of them that have already come through. A little bit about Dr. Elisa Medhus. She is a physician and a mother of 5. She's practiced internal medicine in Houston, Texas for over 30 years. But after the death of her 20-year-old son, Erik, Dr. Medhus began journaling her grief on her blog, Channeling Erik. She knew that the only way that she would be able to heal herself would be through helping others. Isn't that the truth? But because of her strong science background, she formally viewed spiritual matters such as the soul's survival of death with skepticism, not uncommon for people in the science background. But once Erik began to communicate with family members and friends and blog members, her entire paradigm shifted. And now she channels Erik through a medium, Kim Babcock, who's with us today. And they speak to Erik a lot about death and the afterlife and just any questions that any of their community has. And he spends time sharing his wisdom with them. And after I guess her blog members too have experienced some very interesting things with Erik themselves, which we can't wait to hear about because we understand that he is quite the mischievous prankster. Isn't that interesting? She shares her journey in her book, My Son and the Afterlife, Conversations from the Other Side. And Erik has also authored his own book, From the Other Side, My Life After Death, a Memoir from Heaven. And in addition to her 2 books about Erik, Dr. Medhus is also the author of 3 award-winning parenting books, Raising Children Who Think for Themselves, Hearing is Believing, How Words Can Make or Break Our Kids, and Raising Everyday Heroes. I want to give a warm welcome to Dr. Elisa Medhus, channel Kim Babcock, and beautiful soul Erik Medhus, who will be joining us from the other side. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you for having us, Kim.
My goodness.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so how exciting that we've got so many present today, including from the other side. So, Elisa, my goodness, an overachiever is one word that comes to mind. A doctor, an award-winning, or an award-winning author of books, and all this work that you're doing to.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapist for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Are you seeking answers to life questions? Would you like to connect to a departed loved one? Are you suffering from pain, stress, or anxiety? Kimberly Thalkin is a tested, certified, and professional psychic, spiritual medium, energy healer, hypnotherapist, and the founder of Love First, where life transformations happen. Love First services support, guide, and empower individuals by connecting them to their highest potential to live a healthier, joyful, and meaningful life that's filled with purpose. All services can be done by phone, Skype, or in person in Encino, California. Please visit lovefirst.info. That's lovefirst.info for more information. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, inspired listeners, to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Boy, I don't know what happened. There's some suspicion here that Erik has been involved. We were dropped and now we're back. So everybody, welcome back, Elisa, Kim, and Erik, and all of our listeners.
Thank you.
Okay, so Elisa, tell us about Erik's background and what led up to his decision to take his own life, some of the challenges he was having.
Oh, gosh. Well, there were many challenges. He had learning disabilities. He had Tourette's. He was bullied a lot by his peers and even his teachers, you know. So he had a really tough time, and he was very sensitive. I think he was an empath, if truth be told. And, you know, he just wanted to give to people and help people, and he would, even though they were horrible to him. But eventually the demons just got a hold of him, and gosh, you know, he just didn't want to live anymore. I found out later that it was a spiritual contract, that he designed a life, an incarnation, that he would come to Earth, that he would suffer mercilessly, which he did, and but he would be surrounded by a loving family, so it would make his experience a little less painful, and then he would, through his suffering, develop all sorts of tools, listening skills, compassion, etc., so that he could go back and become a wonderful spirit guide. And to me, I just can't believe this is all happening. It's so surreal. I'm just taken aback, you know, by what's gone on with Erik and the blog and such.
Well, yes, it sounds like there's been a wonderful transformation that's happened with a scenario that was terrible in the beginning and has developed into something so beautiful. And what a brave soul he was to have come into this lifetime to take that on for his own learning and growth, because, you know, the thought of being bullied and not treated very nicely is probably one of the most difficult things anybody can experience in this lifetime, especially from teachers. My goodness, they're the ones who are supposed to be lifting us up in times when we need it. So, Elisa, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, wonderful. So there's some definitely, it sounds like, trying times that led up to that very moment. Now once Erik had passed, and you talk about how very difficult it was to handle everything that followed that, from the planning of his funeral to hiring people to actually clean his room where the suicide took place. Oh, I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like. But how does one begin the healing process? I mean, especially a parent who loses a child, which has got to be one of the most heart-wrenching things that anybody could endure.
I think it's definitely the worst thing that can happen to a human being. I would rather lose my own life than lose my child. And I just can't tell you how painful that was. But especially for me, because I guess, well, I'm a mother, and mothers tend to suffer more. I don't want to generalize, but it seems to be the case. But, you know, I was a doctor. My whole world was science, and I was taught that it didn't exist unless you could perceive it with one of your senses or measure it with an instrument or whatever. Plus, I was raised by atheists. I mean, wow. I'm talking about militant atheists. So I just didn't know how to answer that question. Does my son still exist? And if he does, where the heck is he? But then something really amazing happened that I think started me on this path to healing. I think it was about 3 days after Erik died. And oh gosh, we were all in such a dark place. I mean, it's like an atom bomb went off in our family. And I get a call from my father, who was really not a nice man and wasn't the type of person to call and try to cheer people up, to try to give them hope. He called absolutely in a panic to tell me that he was sitting in his chair, you know, just reading the paper, whatever. And he looked up and there was Erik standing right in front of him, clear as a bell.
I just got the chills.
and then Erik turned into a little boy version of himself and crawled up into his grandfather's lap. And he just like, I don't know what to believe. I'm so startled. So that got me to thinking, because again, this is not a man who would tell me these things to make me feel better. His first words to me when I came to see him after Erik's death was, "I'm sorry, Elisa, but Erik's going to turn to dust." So this really meant something. The guy clearly experienced this.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that something? I mean, when you talk about being an atheist, and perhaps maybe even Erik can help us understand this, but how is it that we forget where we came from when we come into this lifetime, right? That's always a question that baffles me. But Erik can, perhaps he can help us better understand that. But that must have been a whole turning point for your whole family when an atheist is saying that he saw the presence of Erik.
It was, and shortly after that, we started experiencing these weird things like completely unplugged appliances would start working. We would watch as deadbolts would turn on. We would watch faucets turn completely on, not a drip, but full blast. We would watch as airsoft BBs would appear at the ceiling and drop to the floor. I mean, just inexplicable things. But, I just couldn't get to that. Yeah, I'm 100% sure that this is really real. Until I heard Erik's voice on a recorded session. And, I was too afraid. I didn't want to believe, I was afraid because what if I did believe, Kim? And then all of a sudden I found out it was all just baloney. And that would be like losing him again. So I, for a long time, 4 years, I did not want to believe. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's the truth.
Right. Well, I could understand where the thought of feeling like you lost him again, or, all that you would hope for is no longer. I could understand that the potential pain that would come with that would probably be easier to feel. I don't want to go there. Right. My goodness. Okay. So all of this phenomena was happening. Now, I did read where you do have Erik's voice caught on audio. Is that something that's listed on your blog site too, or that listeners can hear for themselves as well?
Oh yeah, and I've got it on my YouTube channel several times. I remember one particular. It was a radio interview we had, and we didn't hear any third party. It was just another medium, Jamie, me, and the host. And she called me after listening to the recording and said, "Oh my God, Elisa, there's somebody talking," and it wasn't there on the live radio show. So, I listen, and at the timestamp she told me to listen to, and there's Erik saying very loudly, "Minions." And then right away, the medium says he's calling them minions. So that was interesting. So that's what we got so much. But the first time that I heard his voice, it sounded, I know the sound of my own kid's voice, okay? It was clearly him. He had this way of saying breakfast, like a little kid, for example, breakfast. And just, but still, being the skeptic and being afraid to really believe, I decided to have a sound professional take a look at it, analyze it totally, put it through its paces. And he determined that the voice was not human, clearly not human. For one thing, it didn't leave a voice signature. That doesn't happen with human voices.
Wow, I'm sitting here with a big grin on my face. I can't begin to imagine what that must have felt like to hear his voice. And Elisa, just for our listeners, where can they find your blog and all of your beautiful posts and the shows that you're doing and the events that you have? Where can they find out more about Erik and you?
Well, we've got a great community in the blog community. They're so loving. I just love my virtual family. But it's channelingerik.com. Erik is spelled with a K. And we've got the Channeling Erik YouTube channel. Lots of awesome YouTubes there, including the EVPs, the capture of his voice on many recordings, etc. And we have a Facebook page, Channeling Facebook page. We have a private group, the Channeling Erik Facebook group, where people can share and outside the public eye, where they feel loved and supported. And we have a tour that's starting in June in Denver, an 8-city tour that's going to go to Denver, then I think New York City, Chicago, Vancouver, Orlando, Austin, San Diego. I can't remember where else, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
And so when you do these tours, what do you do on the tour? People come and listen to Erik share his wisdom with the group, or what exactly are these events about?
Oh, I think that's a good question for Kim because she's the headliner.
Oh, okay. Kim, what will these events entail?
Well, they're going to be a lot of fun, a lot of things planned, and basically what the itinerary looks like is it's a Friday night, all day Saturday, and then Sunday morning. And we're going to start off the events on Friday nights by doing open gallery style readings, channeling Erik for the crowd, so that people can ask Erik their questions, because it's not that easy. It's not always easy to get in with a medium and have your own private session. So we're going to open it up for 2 hours on Friday night and do an open style, gallery style channeling Erik session. And then on Saturday, we're going to go through a lot of workshops. Erik is really big on getting his message across and helping people deal with life. So a lot of fun things.
Hold that thought. We are going to go into our second break here, and we'll be right back in 2 minutes. Stay with us as we visit Erik live in just a few minutes.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millicers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us? the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Mark Lanehart, the intuitive prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Mark's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Mark's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marklanehart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim, and our special guest today, Dr. Elisa Medhus, Channel Kim Babcock, and our very special guest, Erik Medhus. Today, our second half of the show is sponsored by the Happiness Road Tour. Happiness Road Tour is a movement that is dedicated to spreading the happy across every major city in the U.S. The Happiness Tour first stops in New York City with an evening of inspiration, entertainment, and meaningful connection that'll help spread happiness. Choose happy. Visit happinessroadtour.com to join today. So thank you to the Happiness Road Tour for sponsoring the second half of Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. So before we went to our second break, Kim, you were talking a little bit about the events that you're planning that are coming up across the country and what the second day of the event entails, so you can continue from that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, like I was saying, Friday night's going to be an open style gallery channeling Erik, and then Saturday is going to be filled with a lot of workshops. In the afternoon, we're also going to do another open gallery channeling Erik, so people can ask more questions. But the focus is going to be on the workshops for the weekend. Erik is really wanting to help people struggling with mental illness and struggling with different things in their life that cause them to feel a lack of motivation, a lack of inspiration, lack of happiness. And so basically, he's going to try to connect with people through these workshops and help them live a better life by understanding what they're experiencing and why. And then Sunday, we're going to finish off the weekend, Sunday morning, with a trans-channeling session where I will be trans-channeling Erik for an hour and basically, again, allowing him to communicate with people that are there and allowing the audience to ask him questions and interact and that sort of thing. So a lot of fun things planned. And then also on Saturday in the evenings, we're going to have other channelers there, other motivational speakers providing their services. So it's going to be filled with a lot of variety of types of services. So we look forward to it.
My goodness, what beautiful work you all are doing and Erik is doing now from the other side. Just so grateful for that, because so many people need happiness and joy in their lives. Elisa, now that you've experienced, a different understanding of perhaps what happened on that tragic day, how do you view Erik's death now?
Well, I think I'll always be a bit broken. I don't know how I can be completely healed, but I am largely healed. I know that I've lost him only in the physical. And my gosh, I do miss those hugs. I really do. But I know that he's not gone, and that we can continue, and we do continue to have a relationship, one that's even more fulfilling and more rich. Before, our relationship was all about me wondering how I could make him be happy. How can I help him? but now it's just more than that. It's much fuller. I think the main way I healed was transcribing his book, My Life After Death. I don't know what it is. I think that it totally took all the mystery out of his death and his life in heaven, what it's like to be a spirit in heaven and so on. And that flipped a switch for me. It really did. And it has for apparently a lot of people. A lot of people say it's been a life-changing book for them. They no longer fear death. They understand, the reason for the human experience and so much more.
And where can our listeners find your book?
Well, my book and his are available. Not just the secretary on that second book, okay? My little chicken clack little laptop, so I didn't really do very much except maybe change some bad grammar. But they the most brick and mortar stores, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Goodreads, all sorts of places.
Okay, so can they also, you were breaking up a little bit, I heard Amazon was one place. Can they find information on channelingerik as well.com on your blog?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Okay, right, because you broke up just a little bit there. So as our time is quickly moving on our show here, shall we move into speaking with Erik now? Is that something that he's ready to do?
Absolutely. Let's do it. He says, I was born ready.
I love his enthusiasm. All right. So, Erik, thank you so much for being with us and for the work that you're doing. We do have some questions that have come in from our guests. One of them is, do we live many lifetimes or just one here on Earth?
Ooh, that's a great question. Before we answer that question, Kim, Erik is saying to you, thank you for hearing my purpose. So just know that he's passing along gratitude to you. Thank you for hearing my purpose, he says.
Thank you.
So in answering that question, do we live one life here on Earth? Erik says, plain and simple, short answer, no. He says multiple incarnations happen on Earth, and then he's kind of getting into talking about the memory of it. Sometimes people have that higher state of awareness and are able to connect to their other states of existence, other consciousnesses, other dynamics of themselves in other incarnations. So when you see that happen, that's when he says, when those two separate lives collide, so to speak, when you connect the two, it's kind of like what you experience when you go through deja vu. Being connected to your higher self in a sense, and being able to, some people can recall their past lives, other incarnations. Some people have absolutely no connection or no memory. So, but long story short, he says, people incarnate multiple times because one life, one physical incarnation wouldn't be enough to help your soul evolve in different ways that you need to.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Erik. Now, this is a question that I have that I just thought, well, I would really love to hear his take on this. Are we, Erik, supposed to be eating animals?
That's also a great question, and that's one that he has been asked before. He says, what's more important is the energy you put on it when you eat it, no matter what it is. Because if you think about animals versus plants, people eat salads and all kinds of different foods. He's laughing, he says, well, the stuff that's good for you also grows. So that growth takes a small amount of awareness, consciousness. It has life force, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you eat, it's more so, what's more important is, he says, yes, it's okay to eat meat. It's okay to eat animals. But what's more important is the energy you put on it before you ingest it. So he says a lot of people eat things with guilt. I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to. Or I probably shouldn't eat this meat. It just doesn't feel right. Know that you can change the vibration of what you're eating before you ingest it, before you take it in. So there's no hierarchy of what you should and shouldn't be eating from meat versus plants and vegetation. He says what's more important is the energy you put on it before you ingest it.
Very interesting. Okay. Well, that thank you so much for sharing that, because I've kind of been toying with that within myself for a while here.
Kim?
Yes.
What Erik has also said is that, and I think he alluded to this, of course, but an animal soul is no more superior than a plant soul, you know? And
right.
And so life is life, but what we need to do is raise them with gratitude and with respect and compassionately. We need to slaughter them or pluck them out of the ground, with gratitude and respect. And we need to do the same thing when we consume them. We need to be loving and grateful. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for helping us understand that. So Erik, we had a question come in from one of our listeners. His name is Kevin, and he would like to know if he will ever find true love, and if so, when.
Ooh, he says, he's being very direct with Kevin. He says, you first have to believe in it. And there, within Kevin, he says there is an issue there. But belief in love doesn't come with, the ability to understand it and accept it. It doesn't come with predefining it. Well, if it's true love, then it's going to be like this and feel like that. He says he has to first strip away those preconceived notions, thoughts, and feelings about what true love is in order to truly experience it. But also, he says he's interrupting himself. He says you will find true love, but first you have to work on believing that it exists for you. That's a struggle for Kevin. He says just believing that it exists for him. So he says you will, and just work on erasing the expectations tied to it.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin, for your question. And oftentimes it requires a shift in perspective, right? We had a question that came in on suicide. So what happens? What did you experience in your own transition, Erik? And is that different when you take your own life?
Erik says, when you take your own life versus pass in any other form, the transition is going to be unique to you and to your perspective.
Oh, goodness. And wouldn't you know it, right in the middle of going to a break. Erik, thank you for your patience. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, inspired listeners, to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim, and our special guest today, Dr. Elisa Medhus, Channel Kim Babcock, and our very special guest, Erik Medhus. So, Kim, sorry, and Erik, excuse us for having to go to break in the middle of a very important message. And so, Kim, we'll let you continue on as to what Erik's experience was like in his own transition, and is it different when you take your own life?
Thank you. Yes, as he was saying before the break, when you take your own life versus passing any other way, he says, it's really no different in what you experience, because what you experience is unique to you. He says what you experience is highly built around what you believe you'll experience before you pass. He says, and the purpose for that, the reason for that is because if you experience something completely different, sometimes it's too violent of a shift to go through. So if you believe you'll experience being greeted by grandma and grandpa or a whole choir of angels, he says, a lot of what you experience is built on your belief, because that makes for a smoother transition. But he says there's still a reflection phase that I went through that you're not really alone, but it's you're alone in adapting and figuring out, okay, what the heck just happened? So, but as he says, just in that moment, as you begin to ask yourself those questions, where am I? What happened? Okay, things are different. I see I'm on the other side now. And making those adjustments and kind of sending out those questions to the universe, help responds. He says, through spirit guides, through loved ones that come based on your requests, based on your questions that you send out to the universe. So what you experience when you transition, whether you take your own life or whether it's by a traumatic accident or an illness, he says it's all still built around what you believe you'll experience. That transition in itself, he says it's unique to your perspective, and then he kind of flips that also and says your perspective and what you experience is unique to your belief. So he says, for me, he says, as soon as I started asking questions, help arrives, guides and loved ones arrive to let you know, to kind of help soften the edges, he says, and helping you to adapt.
Oh, that is just such a beautiful thing to hear. And I think similarly, when you ask for help in this lifetime, we are surrounded by help, and help does come to us. I think he would probably agree, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we do have a question, Erik, that has come in, and she is asking here, and I need to get the name. Oh, Michelle, that's right. Michelle has asked. She's wondering if Erik can tell her what. She says, what I'm to make of the blue sparks and lights and orbs that appear in her vision and her mind, and sometimes other colors, but mostly the brightest blue she's ever seen. Are they him? Are they her dad? Are they her guides? Just her awakening, or what? And am I an empath? And she says, thank you very much.
This is a great question, and many have asked the similar question, and also many people have made the same remarks about the color blue. And it's very funny because as you ask that question or you read that question, Erik is laughing and taking responsibility for the blue sparks. He says, well, that's me. How do I look? But I can also say that when I see Erik as light versus, the physical manifestation part of him, I see him every single time as blue light. So I don't know if that's his favorite color or what, but Erik is taking responsibility for the blue sparks for what she's seeing, but also for her. He says it's not just me. That's her seeing her guides and angelic beings, the very bright lights, he says, are your angelic guides. And that's just you aware in your awakening process. So now that you're aware of those lights, connect to, in those moments when you see them, he says, connect to how you feel or who do you feel. He says, begin to ask for more information when you see those lights. Ask for more information. And he says, I promise you'll get it.
Oh, I love answers like that. How exciting. Just one more person connecting in to, their guidance and growing their awareness. Very nice. I have a question for Erik. We'd like to know, what is God like? What is the divine like?
That's a big one.
It is a big one. We might as well get to the big questions here.
Yeah.
Great resource.
I'm going to try to hold it together because when he is describing, he's getting emotional. So he put his hand on his chest and he said, home, the most secure feeling that is unreachable on earth, unachievable on earth. He says the purest feeling of acceptance, of security, of home that you could imagine. He says for him, the way he felt most connected to God and meeting God, and also what spoke to him the most is feeling absolute acceptance. He says that was big for me to feel that in my life, and feeling that to the depths of my soul, meeting God, that's how we're connected. He says is through that complete and absolute acceptance, the purest form of love and security you could imagine, he says.
Oh my goodness. I mean, something we can't even begin to imagine. What a beautiful feeling that must be. So Erik, is God just kind of a presence that's just always there, or do you get to meet with God one-on-one, or do you have meetings with God and talk through things, or what is interaction like with God?
He says God is an infinite presence that can be your interactions can be, he calls it personal counsel, private counsel, but also it's still, he says God is still infinite in the ability to be connected to and counsel others. So for you as an individual and experiencing that private counsel with God, you experience it from your perspective as basically private time with God. But God is still completely more than capable of being an infinite presence for others as well. So it's very unlike what we're capable of as humans. He says if you have to be one-on-one with somebody, you have to be one-on-one with somebody. But God can be one-on-one with somebody at the same time that he's reaching out and still being connected to infinite, Erik says, complete infinite sense of being. But he says he tailors it to your needs, your experience, and what you interact, how you interact, and what you feel through that interaction is tailored to you, so specific and unique to you.
Okay, very, very nice. I know that was a huge question, but we got to get to the big ones here, especially when we have access to such wisdom. We do have another question that has come in. This woman says, I'm starting to feel at a standstill with what I consider my spiritual mission. Is there something I need to be doing to spark it up and or look for a new mission? And
Erik likes the idea.
This question's come through from Cindy.
Okay. He says to connect more to how to rekindle the fire, not necessarily change the mission, but how to rekindle the fire in you feeling connected to your mission. So how do we do that? How do we spark that back up again? He says, stripping away, he's kind of laughing. He says, basically stripping away everything that the world has put on you, like all these different coats and layers. Take those coats and layers off, and who you are underneath is who you need to strive to reconnect with. So society throws standards and certain conditions at us, but being able to, he says, stay connected to yourself despite societal standards is most important. And when you do that, when you realign with that sense of who you are, then you'll feel your natural instincts kick in and feel purpose and feel mission again.
Kim, so sorry, but we are running the end of the show, and I want to say thank you so much to all who were present today and for guidance.
Thank
and
you.
Join us next Wednesday on Inspired Living with the famous Mavis Patilla. Thank you both all so very much. Our gratitude.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.